Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Hello, Stompin' Jen. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. I'm excited to talk to our guest on the show this week. It is Bonni-Lynne Sandler from HeartnSoul Holistic Healing in South Hadley, Massachusetts. Now,
Yes.
Bonni-Lynne is a very interesting person. She also has a spiritual name, which is Saraswati. Mm-hmm. We're going to ask about that. Mm-hmm. And her company, and what she does, she provides what we call she provides for people who are experiencing issues in the tissues.
Issues in the tissues.
Yes.
Okay.
And provides holistic healing for conditions like trauma, grief, pain, addiction, and really focuses on healing through mind-body connections.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out how to connect my mind and my body, Stomping Jen. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
That sounds great.
Because I need some help with that. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. The Soft Serve Podcast. Creamy, delicious ideas without the creepy truck. Stomping Jen.
We're back to singing
I'm
now.
back to singing again.
Oh, how privileged I feel.
My spirit feels like singing because we're talking to somebody who does holistic healing.
That makes you want to sing.
Yes, it does. Hi, Bonni-Lynne. How you doing?
No, namaste and hello. I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I started off by talking about how you have a spiritual name. We were talking a little bit about this before we hit the record button. And your spiritual name is Saraswati. Could you tell us what that means?
Sure. So Saraswati comes from, yogic wisdom has lots of, ancient roots and so Saraswati. So Saras, S-A-R-A-S, means fluidity, to flow with ease, with grace, perhaps. Yeah, with grace. We'll use that. And she's like the goddess of education, helping others, creativity, and music. Kindness. We'll throw that in there too because it sounds good.
I love that. And how does one find their spiritual name? Does it find you?
That's a great question there. It does find you, but for me, it found me through one of my spiritual teachers, which I'm blessed to have quite a few of them.
Yeah.
If you want one, we can give you one.
Ooh, I want one.
Yeah, I mean my real name is Brad. The name I kind of go by is Sawtooth.
Sawtooth, right?
That's a pretty harsh name, isn't it, Stomping Jen? Yeah, but yeah, if you want to
bestow
or help me connect with a spiritual name, I would love that.
Well, all you need to do is a little bit of yoga or yoga therapy or meditation, and then I become your teacher, and then that happens.
Okay.
Did I hear an "oh no" in there?
Yeah, as soon as you said I had to do something. We'll talk about that though, and maybe after our conversation, I will feel more like this is something I can accomplish. I'm sure it will. So tell us a little bit more about what it is you do. I attempted to in my introduction, but I don't feel I did justice by you. So you tell me what you do for folks.
Sure. So yoga therapy is not the same as yoga proper. Yoga therapy is it's a lot more study, and it was a lot more money to, to graduate with that. But this is more individualized practice, and each yoga therapist takes from their scope of practice whatever their life experience is. So for me, it was special education, emotionally impaired students. I was like, bring me your most emotionally impaired child because I want to help them, So I like a challenge. I have a trauma therapy background. And then I started to change careers. And at that point, I just collected certifications. So I bring Reiki into the practice, which is energy work, body work, and a whole lot of other things. So it's one-on-one work where I meet first of all, people need to want to do the work. Otherwise, forget it. It doesn't work at all. So they have to be invested. And from there, we kind of put together a program of what's going to work for them from my bag of tricks.
Yeah. And thinking about that period of time, and even maybe that moment where you decided, I need to change course. I really want to pursue this path. Like what was the spark that got you going down this road?
There's two sparks. The one spark was teaching, I was in middle school for 15 years and I really wanted to get out of middle school, but, they made a policy where you couldn't hug the kids or touch them anyway. Not that I would do that inappropriately, but I didn't want, kids would come up to me like, hey, and they want a hug. And I said, I'm not going to be another person to abuse these kids. I'm just not. Yeah. So that was one turning point. And I also, about the same year, I suffered an injury during a routine cesarean section where the surgeon crushed my nerves to death. So I went from being, a healthy special ed teacher who wanted to hug the kids that wanted to hug her to being disabled. So I kind of yogaed my way out of that. So that was pretty defining for me. Eastern medicine.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And to your, to kind of the first spark you were talking about, something pops into my mind, a video I saw on the internet recently. I think this was somewhere in Asia, and the kids were like lined up to go into the classroom, and the teacher the kids signaled to the teacher what they wanted. Did they want a hug? Did they want a high five? Did they want a down low? Like, did they want a elbow bump? And this video is like this line of students coming up to the teacher. They give the signal of what they want, and the teacher gives them the hug or the elbow bump or, like whatever it is they want, or nothing. Like some kids just go right in and don't want any, physical like connection to start the day with the teacher. But I thought that was so fascinating. And it's what popped into my mind when you were talking about that decision you had to make.
It is really nice when teachers meet the needs of their students. I always say that all education needs to become more special. Education system is a little funky, and a lot of kids' needs are not met. And it should be. One thing with trauma, as you were sharing that story, that comes to mind is oftentimes yes means no and no means yes. I mean, people who have been traumatized will often, they want to people please, and they'll say, yes, I want a hug or I want an elbow bump or whatever you said, and they really don't. So that's part of being trauma sensitive, is knowing the difference. If we're in the yoga studio, which I don't call it that anymore, but in the somatic healing room, whatever you want to call it, we have little discs that say yes for a hands-on adjustment or no. And I check different ways. I check in, I'll ask privately, and then I'll feel the energy between us too. Because laying hands on in a therapeutic way is really amazing. But if somebody doesn't want that and they're not ready, they may end up screaming and yelling out of the room. So we don't want that either.
Yeah. I've heard this, I think somewhere along the way, somebody has defined this for me. What does somatic mean, that word?
It's the body. It's feeling things within the body. Yeah. And it's very, very important to healing trauma. It's the key to healing trauma. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
And so speaking of trauma, I wanted to ask you, how does the body, how do people carry around the impacts of trauma, PTSD, grief, chronic pain, all those other things you were talking about? Like, how do we manifest those things as we're walking around? And like, how do we begin to know we might need help?
Well, that's also such a lovely question. So the body keeps score. That's the name of a book written by another one of my fine teachers, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. And it does. We hold our trauma, our issues, all of it on a cellular level. So, talk therapy is nice. It's great. We talk about things, but if we don't release that charge from the body, it's not going to work. And I've been in his, so Dr. van der Kolk is worldwide known, but he's been in the presence of many, many mental health workers, and he's very blunt in the way he tells them, if you're not using some somatic movement with your, talk therapy, then you might as well throw your effing licenses away, which he said the whole word, I didn't just now. So, your body doesn't know that the emergency's over. It's still like, so when you start to feel a lot of anxiety, you start to feel depressed, you just don't want to do life anymore. It all adds up. My firm belief is that trauma is under everything. So, it is.
Yeah. And I remember hearing somewhere too, obviously I think in some cases, like there are back injuries that are like obviously due to some kind of physical assault, right? But in a lot of cases, like back pain and neck pain, that is related to other things like emotional assaults you may be going through or feelings you're keeping inside of you. Is that something that kind of aligns with what you do?
Absolutely. That's a big something. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't know what Reiki is, it's based on the chakra system. Chakra, like chocolate, and there's science. I like science. I'm Gemini. I like energy work, body work, and I also like science in the middle. Anyway, so I digress. So there's definitely, so let's say your throat chakra, you have a sore throat all the time. Wherever your weak area is, quote unquote, where you always get sick, when you tend to get sick, that may be where that chakra is holding some trapped energy. I don't really love the word negative, but it's like trapped energy. So let's say, I'm working with a client and I'm doing the Reiki. I joke around like voodoo, but it's not really. It's a science. I was practicing this at major hospitals in Boston, so it's a real thing. And all of a sudden, I'm like clearing my throat a lot, and I'm like, what's going on here? So maybe somebody's used too many words or not enough words, but really more importantly is they weren't heard. And a lot of times people will listen, but they don't hear. And especially for children, they need to be heard. It's all kids really want is to be heard. Just somebody, and usually it's their parent, and sometimes parents, maybe they do their best, but they just don't hear their kids. So, that child might later go on to have like shoulder pain or sore throats or, many different manifestations. Broken heart syndrome is a real thing. I've seen it firsthand. So, somebody's very sad, it goes right to their heart chakra and they have heart situation. So, yeah.
Anxiety, Stomping Jen. From trauma.
I think you need some Reiki.
Yeah. So, when you talk about energy like being trapped, like let's say, like how does that? How do you get it out? Like in like what? I'm not even sure that's the right way to ask the question.
How do you release the energy?
How do you deal with the trapped energy?
So there's a lot of ways. One is, and this is like, again, I always refer back to the science because people think I'm crazy, but I'm not. Maybe, no, I'm just kidding. So shaking. I mean, they let me go on TV and do this stuff. Like, it's real. So there are several different ways to shake. Like, think of an animal in nature. What do they do when they get out of the water? Shake it off, And so there's 3 different methods of shaking that I teach people. That works. I don't shake people though. there are some practitioners that do that. And as far as Reiki goes, it's lifting out this. I think of it like thorns of life. Like this somebody called you this, and this happened, and this, and the little thorns that get trapped within you, and it's like issues in the tissues as well. And then it's so very very carefully lifting these thorns of life out of somebody with their permission and cooperation, and then through the divine or the source or the universe or whatever you want to call this essence that kind of connects us all, I'm a conduit to pour in love in the place of this pain. And people report, I feel lighter, I gotta go see you again because I don't know what happened, I feel great. It's pretty magical to me. It's kind of cool. That's the practice of Reiki. So that's one way to lift. So we shake and we lift, and movement is key. Movement is key.
And
Absolutely.
can people, I know the answer to this, I think, but people can walk around and carry these traumas and not know it, right? And do you have people who come through the door, they have a feeling I need to do something different, right? Because whatever I've been doing before isn't working for me. I want to go try something new, right? So I'm going to go to Heart and Soul Holistic Healing. They come through the door, and how do you
assess,
how do you how does the process begin? You obviously have to talk with them, right? And be what's going on? Why'd you walk through my door?
I mean, I firmly believe too. I got a lot of firm beliefs, I guess, that only people that are meant to come to me will be coming to the door, and I'm usually the last stop for a lot of people too. They've been to, any Western medicine, and Western medicine has its place. If you're having chest pain, I love you, but don't come and see me. Go to the ER first,
right.
But once that's all checked out, to the best of their ability. Yeah, they're kind of desperate when they come to see me. They're just not happy people, and they feel that trauma. I often explain it like a backpack. We're born with a backpack on our back, if you haven't heard that. And we have issues and life happens and shit happens and it just keeps happening. We can't help it. And so, you know what? Eventually that backpack, we're just going to we're going to topple over if we don't release some of that. I also call it carpet stuffers, putting things under the carpet. So it's releasing and talking about stuff. So yeah, it does look like regular therapy for a while as I get the background, but I'm kind of intuitive, and I can. But it's also, even if I know somebody's story, just because I know, they need to say it. It's really important that people voice this stuff because they haven't before in a very non-judgmental, safe, sacred space. Very important. So that's done one-on-one. I mean, people aren't really comfortable doing that in a group. There are group classes. Well, there were before pandemic, but it's a one-on-one experience. So yeah, I think people will get sick. They'll lose their zest for life. Anxiety, by the way, I want to circle back. It's anxiety is when you're projecting forward. You're thinking, you're imagining what might be coming up. And I'm always telling people, imagine good stuff if you need to do that. And depression is when we're just looking back. And the present moment, and this is a lifelong practice for me, for you, I'm sure for all of us, is to stay present and be present. And let your body, mind, and spirit know you're okay.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I struggle with staying present. I'm always thinking about the worst thing that's going to happen to me.
And that's really okay. If you can be okay with that, thoughts are going to happen. So think your thoughts, and just meet them where they're at, rather than trying to push them away and say, I'm no good because I'm not good at this or I struggle at it. Okay, here's a thought. Maybe you'll think it. Yeah, I stopped telling people to put thoughts on a cloud a while ago. I'm like, you know what? Those thoughts are going to come anyway. So why don't we just invite them in and not be afraid of them,
Right. Put some light on them and kind of maybe try to deal with them a little more directly.
Maybe. The dark is okay too,
Yeah.
Have you heard the no lotus? That's a big deal too.
What's that?
I do a spiel at the end of class where, I'll make it, whatever. So we do Padma Mudra where you touch your thumbs and pinky fingers together and the other fingers open up into a lotus flower. And I ask people to gently gaze into their hands. And then I explain how the lotus grows in the bottom of a lake and maybe thinks it's drowning and it can't breathe, and it's dark and icky and I don't like mud. And then it swims its whole little lotus flower life to the top of the water, and it comes to the light, and I like happy endings. So every one of my lotus flowers blooms beautifully, hopefully yours do too. And as we're gazing into our palms, I tell people the answer is kind of in your hands. There is one thing we can control in life, just really one, and that's our reaction. We can't control what goes on outside of us. We could try, good luck with that, but
right.
Our inner landscape is ours to work with. Because stuff's going to happen. It's always going to. It's how we deal with it.
I love that. And I love the looking at your hands. Yeah, I know Michelle Lyman, who I think is a yoga instructor who we talked to on our show. And one thing she said to me that kind of reminds me of something you just said. She talked about how, like, when she first starts working with her students, she has them like think about and flex their fingers. Like, okay, I'm going to introduce you to your fingers, right? And like that never occurred to me before, to like think about my fingers as like part of my
You're like
frustrating
the worst. Yes, because you need to go to these kinds of places and get some gentle guidance.
Yeah, but what
Everyone wants it.
what's
Yeah, gentle is good. I used to be called brutally honest, and I changed it to genuinely honest. But I don't waste time. I'm going to tell people, I call it the way I see it, with kindness and love. After a while, I can't get right into it, so it does take some time. But it is so feeling yourself grounded within in your body, and we all have a body right now for this time, But at the same time, we're not our body, we're not our mind. Your thoughts are thoughts. This body is it's a loner. Some of the theory says we should be used to it. We're dying. People die. This is what we're dying. People do that. We die. So if we can die while we're alive and not be afraid of that process, a lot of the fear goes away too. It's kind of a weird thought, but I'm getting used to it. And then there's no fear. And at the same time, be fully alive in the present moment. So that should play with your brain a little, but it's true, And Michelle, it's a funny story. Michelle, before I moved here 7 years ago, sight unseen, she had hired me to work at her studio. She had broken her leg at the time, so I was over her house doing myofascial release for her as a form of massage. So it's interesting.
Yeah, the connections. I want, I was thinking, I wear this skull ring, which Stomping Jen got for me, for our 25th anniversary, 26th. I can't remember. And part of it, and I also carry around. I'm showing Saraswati my tattoos. I also carry around a skull on my arm, and I have a lotus flower too, right? And part of that is, I'm always trying to keep present in my mind and thinking about and trying to deal in an honest and kind way with myself this thought of mortality. Like I'm not trying to push it away, and always. I don't know. What?
His thing is he wants to be frozen cryogenically.
Well, that's different.
So that they can bring him back to life at some point when.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm just like, that's not happening. I love you, but that's not happening.
But I want to see what technology and stuff they have 100 years from now.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
So I have to say is that I think that you might. I think you sound like you're really trying.
Yes.
And I want to know what Jen's stomping on, but I'll ask that later. But I feel like you're not that nice to yourself in your mind. No judgment. I just hear that. So like inside of your mind is like this whole. Oh my God, I'm saying this, but I suck with it. Whatever you say to yourself. And I invite you to speak nicely to yourself just as you are to me so far. And you're married, your lovely wife.
How is she seeing into me stomping Jen?
Because this is what she does for a living. Literally.
I am slightly psychic, just slightly. But that's not where, this just kind of came to me. Because your words are and I love that you want to believe this because that's the first step,
Yeah.
But you are kind of mean to yourself. Stop it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that and delivering it with kindness too. I appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the techniques you use. You've mentioned some of them here, and they're listed on your website. And I just want to remind people, go to HeartnSoulYoga.net. I'm going to put the link in our show notes so you all can go and check out Saraswati's website and see what's on there. Okay, but go and check it out. So we talked a little bit about trauma therapy, right? Is there anything specifically you want to say about that as an approach or a technique like that you think we should know about?
Well, it is the number one evidence-based treatment for trauma. Yeah. So why not do it? And I think that people get such a funky idea about what yoga is. It's not about the asana or the poses. It really isn't. It's about other things. But I move. I like to move. I have a busy mind as well. So to get me to become still, or at least a little bit still, I got to move first. So it's important to do that as well. But rather than so people learn to take agency and control of their own body, where there are times in their life where they have no control. Things were happening to them. The question isn't what's wrong with you. Never say that if you can help it. Like, this happens a lot. What's wrong with No. It's not what's wrong with you. It's what happened to you. What are the circumstances of your life? So that people start to befriend this body, in their mind. The soul is pure always, but, people are perfectly imperfect. So to feel the body, like you were saying, the hands and whatnot. I work with some kids that they self-harm, or they have eating disorders of some sort, and we'll have a mirror and we'll just look and be like, hey, you got a foot, I got a foot, and just kind of go back and forth and just noticing the body. And then with yoga therapy, it's very important that all yoga teachers are trauma sensitive. That's something that I'm adamant about, and I teach courses on that topic, because in any group you're going to have people that are traumatized, and we're all a little traumatized, and we're all healing all the time. It's like doing laundry. There's always more, there's always more work to be done. So if simple thing like there's a yoga prop, and I'm still struggling with this one. It's a tie. Okay, we call it a yoga belt. Okay, so think about the word belt, tie, strap. None of those are trauma sensitive. So that's just something I'm sharing with you that I struggle with. I'm like, so get this yoga prop is over there. It's blue. Where you can say there's a block. There's a mat. So the language of the yoga teacher should be sensitive to everybody in the room. So it goes along kind of with that, the special education as well. I've seen it happen when I go to class. I'll hear a teacher say something, and I'll be like, oh, that's triggering. And the last thing somebody wants in a yoga class is to be, triggered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting to know your own body, know it's safe in there. It's safe now. This fire is over, or this mean person that's doing blah, blah, blah to me isn't here anymore. Or I always talk about dinosaurs. I don't even know if they were aggressive, but I'm like, the dinosaur's gone, So, yeah, it's just being comfortable within the body. Then we can deal with the busy mind that most people have.
Okay, so trauma therapy is using movement or a combination of techniques to try to address and help get out some of those underlying traumas release
the trapped energy.
Okay. I think I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, for my clients, what we do is a little bit of that talk therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and then I do the modalities with them, Reiki, therapeutic touch, and whatever else comes into my awareness that day. And the homework is yoga. The homework is breath work. Actually, the breath is the connection between the mind and the body, and it tells you you're okay. So if you're not breathing effectively, your mind's going to be like, oh, sugar, there's a problem. And if you're breathing in a efficient way, then the mind knows everything's okay. There's not a big problem. There's no dog barking in the background or anything.
Yeah.
But it's really like, what do you, when you hear bad news, the first thing we go is,
yeah.
That's a backwards breathing.
The sharp breathing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your brain, and this doesn't happen on a conscious level. It's the body. It tells more things to the brain than the brain to the body. So this is a whole change in the dynamic of Western medicine. We talk about the top down, like the brain runs everything, but it's really the body talks more to the brain. We literally have brain cells in our heart and in our gut. In our gut,
yeah. We've talked about this with some other folks too. Like, the more we learn about the body, the more we understand how it's like something like the gut informs what we think of now as the mind, right? And there are these deep, deep connections we were unaware of. But we were aware of it, right? Because it manifests itself in our speech. Like, oh, I felt that in the gut, right? Or my heart hurts, or like, so we do know, like somehow intuitively we know.
Yeah, that's something I ask people all the time. Are you a gut person or a heart person? Like, where do you feel it? But don't think. See, people are going to think first. So, and our minds will lie to us all day long. Don't believe everything you think. All of us don't do that because it's like me. It chatters all the time. No, it's just very busy in there. We think I think it's 60,000 thoughts a day. The problem is it's the same 60,000 thoughts every day. So it's that's where that mindfulness comes in, and I'm just trying to catch the thoughts before they catch you.
Yeah, and if you're somebody like if you're somebody like me who Saraswati, you saw this. I've got a lot of those negative thoughts in there, right? Like that can be taxing when you get to the end of the day, right? You're exhausted from beating yourself up all day. Having all of this, negative energy flowing around. Mm-hmm. Right? Stomping Jen? It's true.
With the negative. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's my pet peeve or whatever. They're not negative. They just are. If we neutralize this stuff, like, who's to say what's good and bad? That's judgment right there.
Right.
There's clear cut, like, things that one should not do because it's harming somebody else. And in yoga, we use the word ahisma. It means do no harm.
Ahisma. Okay.
Yeah, it's like the Hippocratic Oath. It's the same thing. So if you're walking the path of truth, your own truth, and you're not going out of your way to harm people, which I don't think either one of you would do, then you're good. You're good. Like, just know that. So try to neutralize that. Like, I'm having negative thoughts. I'm a negative thinker. Maybe you're catastrophizing a little bit. I'm not sure. But I never hear anybody say, "Hey, I'm a good thinker. I'm a positive thinker." Like, and then that happens too. Though they're like the people that don't want to ever talk about their stuff. Right. And everything's good. It's all good. I'm just not telling you. It's just
I'm not that person. I'll unload on you. Right, Stomping Jen? I love to talk about what's going on. I wanted to ask you about another kind of tool in the box, and I'm sorry, tool might be the wrong word. Approach. Thai body work. What is that? Help us understand that.
So Thai body work. I've been trained in myofascial release is my favorite. Tom Myers actually. He's for some reason Western Mass people don't know him, but in the rest of the world does. It's a unique place out here. I love it. I'm not leaving, but it's interesting what isn't heard around here. He's like, I'm responsible for more divorces because myofascial release is going through the layers of fascia. Fascia is all through our body. It's everywhere, connected from the heel to the brain. Like we have this. Sometimes we have fascial adhesions, blah, blah, blah. So, and within that fascia, that are issues. That's where it is. So as they're released, that happens. With Thai body work, it's basically a yoga routine, although you're passive. You might like that. You're just passively relaxing, but you're being moved. So the yoga is being done for you. You're being brought through the poses, and you don't have to do anything but simply be there. Be there with the practitioner. I'm unable to do just one modality anymore. They all mix in together often, and that's okay too. I do teach people that, though.
That's what I wanted to ask you, and that's part of the holistic, right, concept is you're trained in all of these approaches and modalities, and you work with somebody, and you start with they walk through the door, you start a conversation, and then you begin figuring out what it is the best kind of modality to treat somebody. Is that how it?
Absolutely. Well, we use in yoga therapy. We use and there's a website if anybody wants to find a certified yoga therapist. It's IAYT.something. International Association of Yoga Therapists. It's a big association. But it's we use the koshas, the sheaths, the layers of the self. Because Americans, we're just like thinking we're a brain. We're all walking chickens with whatever brains. We're not just our mind. There are sheaths, layers of the self. And these bodies are like, the mental body. No, I'm not calling you mental. The emotional body, the physical body, the energy body. This is the energy we're brought to this world with. And then there's the energy like you walk into a room, what does your energy do to that room? And it's most people, it's a good energy, Most people aren't like, I'm going in the room. Most people have lightness. They might be shy, which is perfectly fine too. And then we look into the spiritual component. So from the koshas, the sheaths of the self, and drawings of this are really helpful. The goals are made from there, the treatment goals. And clients are in on this with me. I'm not doing anything by myself. They need to be invested and empowered. That's my goal, is to empower people. And I don't really see people for I don't want them to stick around and buy me a Mercedes. That wasn't nice, but whatever. It's not enough for a year or 2 years. Some people do end up seeing me for a little bit longer, but sometimes it's 4 or 5 sessions, and I love you. I'll see you. You can come and hang out, but we're all set.
Come back if you feel you need to. Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind sometimes too, how quickly people can heal when they're ready. And the last component came in, I don't advertise the mediumship aspect, although I did study it. It just happens. And that's been able to bring a lot of relief to people who have lost loved ones, especially through addiction, So it's an interesting one. So like I can see your love. I can see people around people, but it just happens. I just accept what comes to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. Stomping Jen's going to kill me for bringing this up. I have been over the years become increasingly interested in the UAP phenomenon. And that has a lot of connections to what people think of as the paranormal. And the more and more I study this and read government reports and government funded studies about what people have discovered and observed, I'm starting to really begin to truly and deeply believe there is more to this corporeal existence we find ourselves in. I know people who listen to this from the outside, I sometimes feel like, and they sometimes look at me like, wow, that's a lot of woo there, Sawtooth. But it's hard to try to talk to them about this. And I see you doing this with a lot of confidence and kind of commitment, and I want to ask you, like, how do you tune out the people who are gonna hear something like that and look at you askance, or like,
so what other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
You might have heard that. I've ingrained that. If you love me, great. I love you too, as long as you're nice to me. And if you don't like me, it's fine. It's really okay. I will still send love to people, even if, a little bit of love. Little tiny bit, because I want him to heal, but he doesn't need to come and see me. So, I have hundreds of pictures of orbs.
Yes,
beautiful orbs. I don't just go around snapping pictures. I feel an energy and I take a picture. I've lost, I shouldn't say lost. I have many, many loved ones over on the other side of the veil, we could call it. And it's amazing. It reminded me, I have a client, I have a group of 20-year-olds that they magically popped up, but there's one who, she has so much anxiety, anxiety. And I realized that she's psychic. She's been seeing different things. She's had knowings, we'll call it. She knows things. And what relief came to this girl once I was able to find that for her. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm not scared anymore. I'm like, well, good. So she studied with me for a while. Yeah, it just happens, don't question it.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for going into that. I wanted to, what, in your experience in treating so many people, what typically, without revealing details of specific people, like thinking about themes, like what drives people to seek help? Like how do they know? Like, how do they reach a point where they're like, I need to try this different approach? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think for me, why they come to me is because I'm open. Okay. When people I've believed that I've been through what I've been through in my life, so that, and I can be present and know a little bit of what somebody's going through. Nobody feels the same about something. You and I can have the same experience and our lens will be different. But the stuff that's happened in my life, I'm always able to apply it to somebody's situation. Now, I'm not going to, and I give little tidbits of info. People don't pay me to come and hear my story. That's not fair. But I'll give them just enough so they know it's safe to tell me. I get it from my lens again. And it's just from there, it just pours out of them. I think some of the things I say on my website, or I'll say like on a podcast, or wherever they hear it, they're like, and people tell me they think about coming to see me for a year, or they'll be thinking about me. I'm like, why are you thinking about me? But I also know that they're thinking about me, but I wait for them to reach out.
Yeah.
Or wait for them. So you might be getting the theme. They're empowered. It's on their time. It's their choice,
Yeah, it's part of what you said to us kind of at the beginning, which was you believe that if they're meant to come to you, they will, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of some movement, I want to do some movement here, Stomping Jen. I'm looking at our battery level on our laptop, and I'm starting to feel like I need to do some movement and to go connect our laptop to some power. So I'm just going to leave you here for a minute.
Okay.
With
mindful.
Saraswati, yes. And just
where's the charger?
Give me 2 minutes. I'll find it. Okay.
Sounds great.
So carry on without me. Stomping
breathing, mindfully breathing while you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I noticed on the podcasts how you two you interact, and it's fascinating.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
I think you said you had to go to therapy to deal with his anxiety. I think I heard you say that.
I did. It's funny. So my whole life, I never really had major issues with anxiety until a couple of years ago. Well, not so much, but past like two years ish. And I understand a lot more about anxiety and its place in the body.
Was it the pandemic that kind of?
No, just things that I'm involved with personally. But like in my whole life, anxiety shakes. I get really bad, and like anxiety sweat, and
that happened though.
Yeah.
Your body's doing what it's supposed to. This is what we're so trained to not let our bodies do what they know what to do.
Yeah.
How dare you sweat? How dare you shake? Right?
Yeah.
What you're supposed to do is that's a great example of the release. It's happening, and you're trying to not do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
But it might not be attractive if you're in the middle of a business meeting and all of a sudden,
yeah. I mean, that's the problem. That's when it happens, and you're just like, and you like come out of the meeting and you're just like drenched in stench, and you're like, oh my god.
Saraswati, before we started recording, you told us a little bit about how you wanted to give us an example of maybe meditation and mantra, and show us what that looks like. I'd love for you to do that for us.
There's two I'd love to explain to you. So one is called Hypno Bliss Yoga Nidra, or Meditation Nidra, which I made up, so I like to talk about it. It's I wouldn't have time to do it now, but it's foolproof, okay? And that's what sold me on it, because I was like, I can't meditate. Are you kidding me? I am busy. My mind, I'm a mile a minute. And my teacher for Yoga Nidra proper, she's like, it's foolproof. And that's kind of gave me permission to be it gave me permission to, you can't make a mistake in the Yoga Nidra practice, in Hypno Bliss. So there's lots of that on YouTube if you want to hear that. It goes through those koshas again, and people do not know they've been in this state. So it brings you between awake and asleep, where the deepest healing takes place. And maybe it's 50 minutes or half an hour. And when it's over, people are like, wait, what? For every 15 minutes of this practice you're involved in, and you can fall asleep too. It's really okay. If you're in my awareness, I'll wake you up nicely. But if you fall asleep, it still works. If you snore, it still works. If you're drinking water, it still works. I don't know about alcohol. Anyway, it still works. So there's no way it won't work unless you turn me off. Like you turn the voice off, then it doesn't work, or whoever you're listening to. So that's a cool way to approach meditation, in that you're not doing anything. It's a guided meditation, and then it takes you on a journey. And I go with people into the journey. And if it's a private client, I specifically can write in this journey for them to go to places to kind of undo where life has done things for them that weren't serving their highest good. It's the best way to say it. In a group, I always give a safe place in case that they don't like the journey. And part of this is going into diving deep into your own heart space. What is your heart's desire? What does your heart really want? And I don't know that people ever think about that. And don't overthink it. Just listen to that heart. And I'll give a bunch of examples like bliss, ananda, peace, shanti, santosha, contentment. And then I'll say if your heart speaks to you in its own whispering voice, then you listen to that. And then if you're an overthinker or something, then I'm like, well, we'll just say I am, Satnam. And that's enough. You're enough. You're enough as you are. Perfectly imperfect. And the other meditation it's called Bhakti Yoga or mantra. Mantra means mind. And this is my pandemic thing, and I unblocked my throat chakra. I was blessed to study with Sanatan Kaur, who's pretty, she won a Grammy, so she doesn't like when I say that, but whatever. Anyway, she's known around the world. She's wonderful. Her voice is amazing. And here I am. I never sang. I have no musical background. And you don't really have to. It's very big in the Valley too, more in Sanskrit. And what I learned was Gurmukhi, which is ancient language. Anyway, I digress. So it's called a response. So you're moving your body. One that's really great that I do with kids it's called Satanama. So you're touching your fingers together, the first and second, the second, third, the thumb and the second. Get this all right. People can't see, so it's the thumb and the second pointer finger, the thumb and the middle finger, the thumb and the ring finger, and then the thumb and the pinky finger. And it's sa, ta, na, ma. And we would sing it out loud in our human voices a few times. And then we would say it in the voice of love, which is a whisper. And then as the fingers are continuing to do the mantra rolls in your mind, it's in the voice of the divine. I don't say God, because some people were blamed, shamed, and beaten in the name of God. It's fine if God works for you, but I use, the divine source, God's tree, anything, so that people can have that permission to define it their own way. And so this mantra, it's so much research behind it. It's amazing. So we do that. That's a very accessible one. Each finger has a planetary, and an element that is, the sun finger. Blah, blah. So that's one. And then the harmonium was what came to me new in my life. And that kind of mantra is pretty cool. It's, call a response, but it's kind of impossible to do this on the this way. But we'll sing different. I'll give you another example. One mantra that's pretty accessible is Vaheguru, Vaheguru. So Vahe means wow, great bliss coming to me and you, all of us. Wow, how lucky are we? Guru means from darkness to light. So wow, great bliss and wisdom is coming and taking me out of that darkness into the light. And then say Waheguru 3 times, and then Wahe Jio. And Jio means soul. My soul sees your soul. Souls know souls. If we can just come from that soul space. Yeah. So it would be Waheguru, I would sing it, then you would sing it, and we'd go back and forth. It's really nice in a group of people. It's as I said, in the Valley, we have some really, really cool people. One of the first people I met in the Valley was, I don't know if you guys knew Jeff Martell at all. But he was a Kirtanwala. They call it Kirtan as well. And he died. So but whatever. He's a great guy. He's still around. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's a great practice. And that will keep your mind so busy that you won't think you're meditating. You'll just be doing that. Mm. See how it engages all the senses, Yeah.
Did you go to Kirtans? Correct.
Sorry.
Do you attend those? Because I know they do have them all over the Valley.
Yeah. Well, before the pandemic, yes. Now I do a lot on Zoom, and so it's a little bit different what I'm doing because of the Gurmukhi versus the Sanskrit. But yeah, quite a few all over. We have some really some local gems, quite a few of them. And if you know any of them, then you can say them. I don't want to name drop, but we're lucky. I did Sanatan because most people know her. But this is one thing is there's no judgment in any of this, and the more that you drop into the body, but also each sense, notice how my voice sounds, and then notice what else you hear, notice what you see. Taking time to notice things. I don't know how many people just eat their food, they don't taste it, but they ate.
Right.
It's so interesting. So I just had this conversation with our daughter.
Yes.
And which just reminds me of what you were just saying, which was they were saying to me, I wonder how music was invented or something. Like, I want to meet the person that invented music. And I was like, nobody invented music. It just is. It just exists in the world. Like, there is music all around you.
It's the language of the soul.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to bring it back to the healing, the vibration, it heals. And we can help lift the vibration of others, even if we don't know who they are.
Mm.
You know? It's a great question. It's a teenager, right? Your daughter?
Not quite.
Tween.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another great thing that I've been able to do, and I love to do, is bring coping skills to teens. A local district just paid for me to train some teachers, so I'm excited about that. To bring these skills. Like, I wish people had taught me how to breathe and stand up. And, you know, we do something called lion's breath, where you inhale, stick your tongue out and go, like, instead of just holding it in at a younger age. And boy, do we need it now. You know, teenagers are one of my favorite groups of people to work with. I like all people, but, you know, it's teach your daughter that one, you know.
Yeah.
And you could do it too. I always tell parents, like, give yourself a timeout too. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
I'm glad you brought up music, Stomping Jen, because I wanted to mention Saraswati. On your website, I saw that you have a studio musician, or at one point had a studio musician at HeartnSoul Holistic Healing. Can you talk a little bit to us about the importance of sound in...
We still let him hang out around here. It's my husband, John, which is the reason I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
So he plays, he's he's been playing the guitar since he was, 19 or something. And it's interesting how that just came in, because he started to play guitar because he was moved from one neighborhood in Chicago to another, and he felt isolated. So he used music to heal. So to get him to stop playing like AC/DC, so I had the class that I would teach was restorative, which is one of the best yogas. You're fully supported on the earth. And I'm like, and I can tell it's really hard for people to just be there. So I keep people busy. I have John playing the music and the chakra healing bowls, and I would be doing Reiki and talking about it a minute. I don't care if you listen. It's just a distraction. And also some massage. And that class would have about 25 people in it. So I'd have to have an assistant. And I do the harmonium now. I'm doing it's almost all one-on-one, because the trauma is so... I think the pandemic just whatever we had that was a form of dis-ease. And I say dis-ease, implying and knowing that we can come into ease and grace. So take the dis away and we have ease. The pandemic just heightened it and made it more present. So I'm finding that people have a lot more on their minds and in their bodies. There's another story too. Peter Levine is another famous pioneer of this. It's called Waking the Tiger. And
I've heard of him, I think.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I think so.
He's a good one. So he had a patient in his talk therapy, and he didn't know anything about this movement. And the lady's talking, and all of a sudden she gets up and she screams, and she's standing on the chair. And so he called it Waking the Tiger. It's that outlet is so important. And if you think about some people's childhoods, they weren't allowed, and I think children should be seen and not heard is long gone.
That's so gross. That is so gross. But
people still do it.
And I think about John Lennon was a big proponent of, I think he called it scream therapy. I'm not sure that's the right thing, but his song Mother famously uses elements of that. And in that song, he's talking about like this really deep trauma that he experienced from his parenting, that from when he was parented, by his parents.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's a great song, and he uses.
I'll never get this though. I'm never going to understand this. How people can do these things to their children. Okay, I've tried, and resilience. Like I have many clients who are. I can't share stories, but it would make you just want to. It's awful atrocities that they should not have been allowed to have children. And these kids grow up but they don't go and abuse their own kids. Okay. So then I think about resilience. What makes one person different than another? I have I have 2 books that are almost done, and I'm blogging and writing. I love to write. Resilience. Like, what is that within us? And I think we're just born that way. Some of us.
Yeah.
Because if somebody hit me, I didn't like it. why would I go do it to someone else? But, well, there are reasons psychologically, because it becomes an expression of attention and love. So they learn to love in a way that isn't healthy.
Yeah.
Breaking that attachment is a little tricky. John Lennon was a screamer, huh?
Yeah, he was into that. I mean, part of me thinks he went. I think he was riding many waves looking for healing. That's my sense of him as a person. And that was one wave he rode upon. I wanted to also ask you. So you're a teacher. You teach some of these things. What have you learned about holistic healing after teaching it and practicing it for so long? And maybe your learning's not done, but
never. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it works. It's like in the room. It works if you work it, but you work with addiction for so long. It's the way. I mean, I learned that from my own experience with being injured, having a C-section, and then being told to have the scar tissue cut out, which is scar tissue begets scar tissue. The more it likes to reproduce. So I had to turn to Eastern medicine, and it works. It's the finisher in a way, although it can be a standalone. Again, like I said in the beginning, if you think you're having a heart attack, I love you, but get
right.
the ER. But it does work. It's ancient. It's 5,000 or many thousand years old. So it shouldn't be ignored. I think a merger of modern science and holistic medicine go together,
Mm.
I mean, if people are on medications, I'm not like, hey, get off those. That's not my place. If it works, whatever works. And I think that may be something that is unique for me, because people will be like, I'm on antidepressant. I'm like, it's okay. I'm not here to judge you. If it's helping you, great, and if it's not, then let's talk about how you can, I do connect a lot with mental health professionals or their physician or whatever, whoever, as a liaison. So, it's up to the people. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Same with yoga. There's no right or wrong way. There's just a way. But holistic healing helps.
Do health insurance companies tend to cover this kind of stuff, or I'm curious about that.
Then big pharma doesn't get paid, but
right.
In general, but insurance companies, some do.
Okay.
HSAs do health savings accounts. We're so close to this, and I'll match the copay for mental. See, this is my throat chakra. Oh, we're so close to it. Maybe we're not. No, you got to draw the line somewhere. But I think that there are some health insurances that do. In fact, they give incentives for it. Okay. So it's getting there. So
people, if you're hearing this, right, and you're in a place where you think your insurance might be a barrier, it might cover some of this. So look into it and still reach out to Saraswati at HeartnSoul Holistic Healing and have a conversation.
I do a sliding scale for people. I mean, I don't make what I made in Boston, and that's really okay. We don't get in this business to be rich. I also don't like to talk about money. It's abundance. Switch the dynamics. Switch the what's the thing they keep saying? Well, whatever. The narrative. Yeah, switch the narrative. It's not money. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be. I have the abundance. I want to know I have clothes and a roof over my head and some food to eat, and love is pretty important too. And connection. I don't need I don't need things. Does anybody we can't take it with us, right?
Right. That's what they say.
I think if you've got an abundance of money, buy a vacation, buy a memory.
Memories.
Experiences. Yeah.
Saraswati, where do you want to take HeartnSoul Holistic Healing? You're looking down the road a bit, or are you just in the present and you're doing what you're doing?
Well, interesting question. So I had a large place in Wilbraham before pandemic came, giant with the hammocks and all this. And I spent most of my day, I'm giving you like a mantra here, most of my day.
I wouldn't get out of those hammocks personally. That would be the end of me.
They're therapeutic too. I tried to hang them in the local place, but it didn't work. So they're sitting around. But there's kids love them. They just sensory awareness and they're calming. Little kids who I've taught, preschoolers, they are not deep. They love to just be. You wouldn't think that, right? Because their parents might be like, let's do it. They like to be. But anyway, So at that point, I was looking at a model that I really like is like having. Well, I have my psychologist who still consults with me. She works. She sees people at HeartnSoul, and I had a couple other counselors. But everybody has to have a holistic modality mixed in. There's no just talk therapy, and kind of doing that model, and then going to become a nonprofit. But I kind of scaled it back now because that it is what it is. There were gifts in this pandemic for me, and there were some knowings. And so I'm just doing a lot of one-on-one, and I've shifted to I'm going to finish some of these books before it's my time to say goodbye. And I love to train people to bring this out into the world. So I think that's kind of where I'm at now, is training people. It sounds weird that way, but just teaching them what I know. Then they put their spin on it, and I get some great joy when I see people that I've taught some of these modalities putting their own branding, which is that's a business word, but on and helping people out there. Like, what better thing can I give to the world? Mm-hmm. and watch them go out and do their thing, mm-hmm. and they better do it right. I'm just kidding.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Anything before we go on to our last two questions? Anything that we didn't touch upon that you wanted to make sure we talked about? Yeah,
talk is the right word. That's one of the things that makes HeartnSoul unique, is we do talk about the things that nobody talks about. Like, if some, grief, we don't, I'm not going to think, I make jokes, and I don't mean to be rude, but be like, oh, your dead uncle's over there. I mean, it's not funny, but we're not going to just not talk about it. Addiction, we talk about how people got there. If somebody needs to have a certain amount of sobriety to come, though, because I have underground people that I will call if somebody, I've had people show up high. I've had people score coke in the parking lot. I'm like, I love you, but go get sober. Not clean, because that implies they're dirty. We don't say clean. Go get sober and then come on back, because that's out of my, yeah. So, we talk about addiction. We talk about, our traumas. It's open. It's open. So talking about it and then moving after, and learning to breathe. So that's kind of the basis behind it. And as I said before, we're all healing, and I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I just got lucky to be able to study this and share it with people. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. What do you like to do when you're not doing this work? Like, how do you, what ways not related to the work do you like to connect to yourself, or just cut loose, or whatever it is?
I've got 2 golden doodles. They're therapy dogs, but I have 2 golden doodles, and I love to walk in the woods with them. It's like, that's where I'm connecting with nature. That doesn't count. It's still therapeutic, but
that counts.
That's what I like to do. I mean, we'll go to a concert once in a while. It's like, I think I do live my yoga. I practice what I teach. So it is my life. It's what I do. Playing the harmonium was a big challenge. Harmonium is like a piano, but it has bellows, because a lot of people don't know what the heck it is. And it's just, so music has been really great for me. And that doesn't count as work. It's fun. I'm using it as a specialist, but yeah. Yes. And then I get to talk on Zoom to people. I have friends all over the world now that I met in a spiritual community. That's another thing that I'm just starting now. Even though we don't have to be out of person, you can be in person. I'm finding that connecting energetically to people is working on Zoom, which I never would have thought in the beginning. I was like, ooh, I've got to make my business this room. Yeah. But so it's a women's group for people. I don't know I can't tell you how many women come to me. They're like, I can't find anybody like me. Like, and I'm lonely, and I want connection. So, and some of them are in Germany, and some are in Chicago, so they're all over. So I'm just starting that group.
That's cool.
I can attest to that, having talked to, I don't know dozens of people now, maybe more than that. People I've never met before, right? Like, you just like us, right? Like we have not met before this, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, and like, there's some people like I immediately feel comfortable in my energy with, right? And I'll share it. I'm feeling comfortable right now, Stomping Jen. You can tell probably, like, and there are others like you just like you don't vibe with. The energy isn't there, and it. I don't know if we're transmitting through space time in some way, or it's going through the computer. Like, I don't know what's happening, but that energy does exist over Zoom. That's all I wanted to say, Stomping Jen.
Oh, thank you.
I think we learned that, but I also, in person, if and this is my belief, you do not have to believe it. The people that I, as you said, vibe with are people I've met in past lives, and that goes a whole nother avenue. But those people that you meet, and you're like, I know you, like, don't I? And I feel like we keep doing these cycles of life, and we know who our people are. It's when we try to, well, like if you're at a 9-to-5 job, you kind of get no choice. We've been there too, but stay with the people that you have that comfortable feeling with.
Mm.
It's kind of fun. And I've met people from Zoom in person, and it's the same. So I was, because that was like the acid test, right? When I meet you in person, am I gonna like not want to connect with you? But there was eye gazing and hugs, and I was like, oh, okay, I like you off Zoom too.
Yeah.
Have you had that
That's
experience?
cool. I haven't. No, I don't think so. Have I?
I don't know.
I'm asking because you're around me a lot. Maybe you've seen us meet.
Around me a lot.
Have we met?
Keep score for you.
Yeah, like have we met somebody on Zoom that we then met in person?
Well, so one person who I didn't recognize off camera, and you were like, "This is so and so," and I was like, "Oh, oops."
Who was
It
it?
was Steve O'Bolanek.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah, remember we saw him somewhere.
Steve. I met Steve. I met him down the Cape.
Mm-hmm.
I used to live. We were at a training together, and he's like, "I'm from Springfield." I'm like, "No kidding." So that's how we met, which is funny. But one thing people tell me when they meet me is they can't believe I'm as short as I am. I'm 4'11".
Oh, really?
I look tall on Zoom. I don't know. Maybe that's the most weird comment I've had. Like we just, it's the same. So when you come into Heart and Soul, then you'll be able to tell, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm closer to actually doing and trying out a holistic healing approach than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Stomping Jen.
That's great news for me.
Moving strongly in that direction. All right, our last our last question, Saraswati. Okay. I feel like you're going to have an answer to this.
You definitely.
We ask this of everybody. What have you experienced that you can't explain?
Well, a lot of things. Something happened to me just before we came on here, and these things happen all the time. I can't explain them. I went on Amazon, right? And I bought some stuff last night, and it said December 6th. I'm like, what? Delivered December 6th. I'm like, okay. And that's a special date for me. And I also today, I found a note on the floor. No freaking idea where it came from. It said, enjoy, be well, and stay safe. Okay, so putting that together, my mother's birthday was December 6th.
Mm.
Oh.
I'm like, Charles, right? I mean, that question is hours worth of conversation. The things happen to me every day that I have no idea. And you know what? It's like, it just happens. And I ride those waves of sensation you talked about. It's an interesting world. It really is. Really interesting. That's one. I mean, people appearing out of nowhere and talking. I mean, have you ever heard your name called and there's nobody there? That you could, I could be called crazy too, but yeah, I've heard that. It happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need to do a podcast with folks, just one episode on things we've experienced we can't explain, because I've got a long list.
Yeah. See, I think this is your anxiety. Yeah. This is what it is. So. You haven't been able to accept that or know it. So the code is we know things, and everybody can know things if you're open to it.
Yeah.
I'm
going to send him to you.
All right. Saraswati, also known as Bonni-Lynne Sandler of Heart and Soul Holistic Healing in South Hadley, Massachusetts. Thank you for talking with us. I learned so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know other people are going to enjoy it as well. So thanks for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Namaste, and a waheguru too. I enjoyed it very much. It's so nice to connect.
I want to tell our listeners something now. Let's keep this positive energy going. Go to Saraswati's website. I'm going to put all of the links in the show notes, okay? There's going to be links to the Facebook page, YouTube, all of the things.
All the things.
And I'm going to ask you to be kind to yourselves and go and check out these links. I'm not going to threaten you like I usually do. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I just did.
And leave some positive stuff for us.
Yes, leave some positive thoughts for us. Okay, so go check, but seriously, go check out Saraswati's website. and the links and all that good stuff. Also, if you're listening to this and coming to us for the first time, thank you. Please subscribe to our podcast, download our episodes, share with a friend. We have amazing guests on here, and sometimes it's just Stomping Jen and I talking to each other, right? And as you can hear, we're a dog-friendly podcast. We had a podcast with all dogs on here once. We interviewed a brewing company that's somehow related to dogs. That's all I know, Stomping Jen.
That's all you know.
All right, so people, I'm going to say it. It's been a few episodes since I've said it. We love you.
We love
I'm
you.
feeling inspired to say it tonight.
I love you too. Thank you so much. That means a lot. I love you too. I love you both. I love you all. Just love.
Yeah.
That's the vibration to live in. Thank you.
All right, so you're feeling it, listeners, right? All the love. So
all the love.
With that, we're going to say bye now.
Bye now.
Saraswati, would you like to say goodbye in your own special way?
Satnam and bye now.
All right, folks. Bye now.
This world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road.